taking apart the interior and giving everything a good clean, now everything is ready for some sound deadening. So for a quick rundown of what products I'm using, it's basically Car Builder's Mass Noise Liner, which is a thick vinyl and foam noise insulation mat that doesn't have any stick. Car Builder's Insulator, which is basically just the foam component and a bit thinner, and it does have adhesive to stick to panels like the roof. Both insulate from sound and heat, and then below both of those, over every panel, is going to be this butyl rubber self-adhesive stuff like this, with an aluminium on one side, so that there is basically not sticky stuff exposed on one side. And the aluminium helps reflect heat a tiny bit as well. The major sound deadening is done by taking out the panel resonance, which this does an amazing job at, just being rubber, so I'll show some before and afters knocking on certain panels. But I also put an extra foam on the roof and thicker mats on the floor to really kill any sound coming through, not just the resonance. And I wanted it on the roof for a tiny bit of heat insulation, even though the car is white so it doesn't heat up too much in the sun. It just helps when the aircon is running inside the cab versus the outside air temperatures. So I'm basically doing everything you can to make it as premium as possible. The first panel I did was the roof with this butyl rubber, applying it similar to tiling, and I was really impressed with the stick of it. It's not like a normal adhesive. Once you've rolled it on and put some pressure on it, it's just stuck solid and it will not get hot enough to matter for this stuff. With this big flat panel roof, it's really quite drummy. So just the wind turbulence, and especially in the rain when droplets are hitting the roof, you just can't hear well in the cabin at all. Everyone has to raise their voice, music isn't clear, and it's just not a fun time. With this, I can already tell it's going to dull that right down. After the butyl rubber is the foam insulator, and since this came in a roll, I tried to measure and cut things as best as I could and applied it in the same way, sticking it to the aluminium of the butyl rubber layer. After that, I did all the doors next, which I didn't film the process for obvious reasons, because you just couldn't see with me in the way, and you have to reach up into the door through its openings to apply it. But the same principle, covering absolutely every inch I can and rolling it on to get stuck. And the difference it made was absolutely insane. Comparing the front door panel, which was done, to the rear door panel, which wasn't, shows you exactly what I'm talking about. I was tapping exactly the same, but because your ears don't pick up as much noise, it might look like I'm hitting it softer. But I guarantee I'm not, and you can just tell. The whole panel sounds and feels solid now when you close the door, so buffeting and turbulent air on the roads, as well as the speakers driving music through these doors, is going to sound so much better. I continued the process around to all the other doors, including the rear doors. You basically just want to target all the large flat surfaces. So I took off the plastic outer bit to get to it for this one on the outside since it's covered. And then sometimes you just have to get a thing or two out the way to be able to reach in, like the rear wiper motor. The wheel arches are of course a very big source of a lot of the noise, so I really wanted to cover all of the wheel arches and reach in absolutely everywhere I could, even though it was difficult. You can see for getting into the deeper part of this wheel well, you have to reach in from the bigger hole here, and I cut a piece like this, and then managed to push it where it needed to be on the wheel arch panel. This quarter is now all done. You can also just take out a bolt there and there to get out this piece of ducting that directs the flow of air to the vents higher up in the cabin. And that gives you the access you need to get your hand in here. And then on here, it's just 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that takes off the blower motor part of the rear AC assembly, and that way you can leave the AC line still connected and not need to regas it. From the other side of that rear wheel arch, this is the AC block that stops you pulling it further through without needing to degas it. Those lines just run down and back to the front where the AC is, of course, but so unless you want to degas it, that's why you can't pull it through any further. If you want to make it a bit easier, you can do that, but I thought it was easy enough just to reach around with the amount that you can remove. Plus, it saves you money and you don't need to do it. And then you can put all the sound deadening in. And I did also manage to get it right the way in over the wheel arch since it's such a key area. And that's that wheel arch done. So now the AC assembly can all go back together. Moving on with the sound deadening, I figured I don't need to go too in depth with the floor panels since you're basically just covering everything you can without covering holes and connection points, which I'll show once it's done. So it's just a matter of measuring and cutting to size, getting it in position, and making sure you roll it on really nicely into all the shapes so it sticks down to the surface. I ordered the amount of butyl rubber I needed based on other manufacturer kits, and I was a lot more thorough and covered pieces that they just don't go to, like all the roof panels, including under the AC ducting, in the wheel arches and over the wheel arches. So I was a little short at the rear, but I had excess of the insulator product, so I used that over the rear section. It's not too big of a deal because what is there of the factory sound deadening is thickest at the back, and since I'll always have drawers in the back, and also of course the thicker mass noise liner mats, I was not really bothered.
I'm running on diesel, baby, I'm active. Shawty wanna know what's happening. Baby, no cap, I'm captain. Honey, no rings on me, ain't begging.
Since it came in a roll, I just left it with some weight on it to unbend it a bit before I stuck it down. And that's this step of the sound deadening done, but I'll let the footage and all the details do the talking.
I need a break, don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You really broke my heart. You open up my scars. I think I need a break, don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You really broke my heart. You open up my scars. I think I need a break, don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You really broke my heart. You open up my scars. I think I need a break, don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You really.
Next up was the mass noise liner, thicker vinyl and foam mats. So I threw on some headphones and worked through the night. It's fairly much the same process, just cutting to size and trying to cover as much as possible. But this one doesn't stick down, it's just a mat. One thing I would do differently is although you might really want to cover the wheel arches with the mat since it's such a key area, I would avoid the mat. Just let the butyl rubber do its job, because just these areas specifically made it way harder to compress down and get the linings in later. I managed to do it, but it was actually very difficult to push down and get the clips in, so clearance just isn't really there. The butyl rubber is doing most of the work anyway. The main thing you're trying to accomplish is just covering as much as you can and trying to treat it like a bucket, where you want as little holes as possible to stop leaks. But in this case, we're talking sound leaks. There has to be some places for connections for seats and trim clips, but instead of pointing each one out, I'll just let you have a look around the cabin and see for yourself. There is this one AC ducting piece that has some locating pins at the back that just sits up in here, and it just has a lower spout that connects up into the bottom of it, and it just comes out and runs down from there under here through that gap. So I'll fit those back in, and the carpet sits on top of those bits, hiding them. But I wanted some sound deadening behind it, right against the panels. With it all in, you can see the two little locating dowels at the back there, and there is also a clip at the front to clip in so you know you've got it in the right place. It was a little tricky. I took those out so I could reach in up over this transmission tunnel as much as possible with sound deadening, trying to reduce as much as possible coming in from the tunnel and firewall. The next piece to go back in is this. It just fits over the center console. You're trying to get it into here, and he's held on by just this one little bolt which attaches just in there. Just to show, before it's fully fitted, you slip it up and under the AC controls and the wires, and then it will line up with the bolt hole. As well as fitting that, I just put this center piece in, and it's held in by 2 bolts at the bottom here, and then 2 up at the top in these corners. After that, it's time to put the carpet back in, and then connect up some of the other bits that go on top, like the ones in the driver's footwell, where there's just a footrest and a piece for the accelerator to bottom out on. And then there's other little screws that clip onto a few studs that hold the carpet in position. So just with the front carpet in position, you'll put in these other bits that go and meet up with the AC ducting that brings it down here, and it has 1 bolt to hold it in, and that just goes here. Here's what it'll look like, and then you'll just line up the little holes to locate everything. Mainly just things like bolts for the seats. These are the plastic bits that screw into those studs and keep the carpet in place. On the driver's side, there is one up there, and then there's this footrest which just has clips that push over the studs here, and then there's one piece for the accelerator that bolts in here. So when it all comes together, this is what it will look like. It will come together looking all neat with those clips holding everything flush, and then the other pieces of the carpet that come in the back will come down and connect up to this bit of Velcro, and that holds them close together under the seats. On the second third of the carpet, I put these latches in for the second row folding seats with 14 size bolts, and did my best to insulate right up to them on both sides with a nice diamond shape. And it's fairly easy. Pop it in and fold it out and line up everything, which is why the seat holes were left open in the insulation here. So here it is all in, with a little Velcro strip here, and all the seat holes for mounting that will mount up there and there. So it's slightly more stretched, but everything should still fit. As you can see, all of these will line up. The clips for the door trim is the one thing that stretches the most if you use the thicker mass noise liner. Showing you from the back here, where it folds over this back piece and covers the seam in the mass noise liner, it runs down here, and this is what I'm talking about, where you can see it will have a little bit of a pull here. And since it is a bit thin, don't force it or you'll just rip the carpet. And the seats will line up here just fine. And that will hold the carpet in place with the new insulation. And then the back is the simplest, it just fits in. And with the third row seats removed, I didn't cut holes in the insulation, and now it's looking and smelling so much better without the dirt and oils throughout the carpet. The carpet is crystal clean and smelling amazing and fresh. I put this holder back in with its 2 bolts there and 2 there, ready to have the plastic bits like the lights and sunglasses holder mounted to it. I added some foam strips just here and one against the roof just to isolate vibrations and stop any creaks. As far as the AC ducting goes, it runs from the rear aircon blower up here into another piece held in by a clip there, and one on the other side. So 3 for that one, and then 2 for each side piece that just join in there. The clips are just there, and there, and there, and there. So that's the whole aircon at the top, and then the roof liner that goes in at the top now will be held up by this one first by 2 bolts. Make sure to plug it in. That will support it in the middle, and then there's clips at the back that can support it there. That just clips in the top, then you can take them out again to put the back roof liner in, but that just holds this one up for now. Then at the front there will be more clips for the sun visors and centerpiece that hold it up, so I'll show that once it's in. After the carpets, I also put in the rear wheel arch liners, which then holds down the sound deadening really well. Against the wheel arch, it's very solid now. It's got 3 clips along the top. Mine had the cream colored ones over the black carpet, which was different from the other side, but you don't see them anywhere. I'm sure you can mix them around as long as the clips are holding it down. Then there's these little clips which were the heavy lifters. They go into the bracket across the back here. I had to push down really quite hard across this flat bit here, which puts a good amount of pressure there spread across the thick matting. So you push it down, it makes it nice and solid, and then this clip is quite strong, so it lines up and holds it in. Then when I put the seat belts in, which you can only do once you run it through the other top liner that mounts over here and covers the top half. So once I've done that, then there's a bolt that goes in here, and that also makes sure it holds down this whole wheel arch liner. At the back of it, there's also these plastic clips that go into brackets behind it and hold it on both sides. Those also helped hold it down, and then there's just screws in the bottom corners. It was a bit of a challenge to compress them down far enough, but it is doable, and then it fits in beautifully as they were before, but now very solid. With the front seat belts, you put it in with the 1 bolt behind the belt here. You leave out the bottom one because it goes in after a plastic cover. You put in the 1 bolt at the top first, also after a plastic cover. Just like this, you put this light plastic first, then you bring the seatbelt up and bolt it in here. Later there'll also be a handle. Then you fit the black plastic which just fits around there. And once you've got that on, then you can put the bottom bolt in which holds in the seatbelt bracket, and this plastic. Now, just to recap before putting the headliner in and covering it, looking back at the rear AC, it comes up on the wall, joins in onto a piece that runs over the middle, which is held in just there, and 2 pieces on the side, there and there. And then it joins off into a side piece on both sides, which is just held on by 1 there and 1 there, so 2 on the side pieces and 3 for the middle piece. And that holds in the AC ducting. So the front headliner is in, supported by the 2 sun visor clips first, the light in the middle, and then towards the back you put in the rear headliner, held in the middle by the same sort of light switch as well, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clips that clip them both together and up into the roof. It can easily hold itself up with these in, so you can take your time from here on, getting to the side handles and other clips. But I'd be pretty quick with getting those 2 in the front, and then these ones in, just so it's supported in the front, middle and back, and the rear one is small, so it can just be supported by the middle light switch and clips. Then you can slip the aircon vents in, the same for the side pieces. When you're putting in the rest of the front bits to support the roof more, for these ones they have these little clips on them, so this goes in and then slides back onto the clips, and then you tighten it up into the roof. So when you're taking it off, it's just in reverse. Undo the bolts and slide it back to bring it out. When putting in the air filters, it's got these 2 things here and here. It makes sense to have them face each other and clip them together in the middle, and then you can clip them together sort of like one of those clips, but then it doesn't make sense to me that that clip and that clip bump into each other, and then there's no seal down the middle. But if you have them facing the other way, then there's these bits along here that interlock with the other one along here, so that gives you a good seal in the middle, and then these clips could clip in on the outside. So all I had to do was cut the one little tab there that was bumping into it. So that tiny modification, and then it fits together nicely, and this can simply be clipped onto the bottom. And you can use the one from here. It doesn't actually hold anything together, the plastic is bonded together, so you can take it and it can be used to clip onto this shoulder instead. And then at the top, I'm not too concerned because it's got gravity and the other clip on the side here. So actually, I thought initially that they would interlock like this, so I had cable tied it together, but if you actually look, it does say which way the airflow is meant to go, so with them both facing the same direction, you'll have a single beam at the bottom, and then at the top there will be those interlocking bits, which then fits with what's in the housing. On the bottom, it's got a middle slit for it to slide onto, and then at the top, it's got a thing in the middle, so it needs the other bits to slide around it. Then the airflow is that way. It fits together a bit funny, but that's how it's done, because I couldn't find any single piece filters when I looked. But I think there are some now. So with it pushed in, you can see I took the one from here, and you can see it's all sealed anyway, so it's not holding it together. And then I put it over the bottom one so it holds the filters onto this piece. It holds it really nice and solid, and it squishes the foam. For the top one, there's no place to cable tie or hold it on because it doesn't have both shoulders, because the other one goes at the bottom, and it definitely goes like that. And if you thought this one was upside down, there's no place for this top clip to clip onto at the top either, so this way lines up the airflow arrows and lines up with the slots inside the housing. The top one's foam is slightly less squished, but still seals well, and it can't fall out because it's clipped inside to this bottom one and the top a little bit. So it's all good. If I have any air leaks, I'll know where to look, but I think it'll be fine. And that's the process of installing an air filter on this car that never previously had one. Alright, moving on to the speakers upgrade, I got some JL Audio component speakers for the front, so I can get better sound staging by putting the tweeters up higher in the A-pillars at the dash level, not just having speakers by your feet in the doors. You want mids and vocals higher, and the bass can be lower because it's more filling anyway. That's the most premium way to do it. The JL Audio tweeters need to fire sound through these grills, so I need to mount them on the back here. I used the strongest double-sided tape I could find, which was ridiculously strong, but I still didn't want to rely on adhesive that can fail over time, so I added silicone too, just keeping it at the sides and back so it doesn't go over the cone and get around to the front and ruin the speakers or the look. At first I just put a bit, and then I added more around the sides until it was nice and strong and wouldn't fall off no matter how much the car bumps or rattles. And the sound insulation means that the speakers can fire right out the front and only vibrate how it's meant to. You can see how neat it looks from the front on these new A-pillars. You can just see the aluminium cone through here. Now, if you look, you can see there is still room for sound waves and air pressure to escape through these gaps between the A-pillar and the speaker. So to fill those gaps, it's too far for silicone, which would just fall in, and I didn't want to ruin the front look of these beautiful A-pillars or just have any messy work. So what I did was use some of the sound deadening offcuts from when I did the cabin, and this was the perfect application for it. I just pressed it onto the lip of the speaker and onto the A-pillar, and it seals that hole. It holds the tweeter even better and keeps the sound all focused forward, all going into the cab. As far as mounting the tweeters go, this is the A pillar that needs to go up in here. Being a component speaker, its wires will run down and through here and connect to the main woofer where it will get signal. So its wiring will run through the door, through this little grommet bit here, up through there and into the cab and up to its mounting place. It specifically says not to put the crossover in the door, I assume because it can get wet and it protects it from shocks when you close the door and things like that. So I'm thinking to mount it up in here, where there is 2 spots that you can cable tie onto. I think they're from unused solenoids or fuses for a different spec of this car, so I can cable tie the crossover there, connect its cables to some red and black, and then through here and down. I'll feed them into the rubber grommet, and they'll come out the bottom here and connect the crossover to the woofer, which gets signal from the factory cables. So the signal flow goes from the woofer through to the crossover, and then from the crossover to the tweeters. The crossover obviously protecting the tweeters from the bass frequencies that are just meant for the woofer.
So it was quite difficult to get this wire through this rubber boot, and it goes from the door to the side of the body. So what I did is I just disconnected this plug from the end of it, just folded it back so I can see more at the wires, because this curved shoulder was making it quite difficult to get around. And then you can feed the wire. What I did is I put it through a pen and then through the tip, and then tied a knot at the end so it can't go back through the pen because it will want to get tight. And then obviously all that needs to happen is the wire gets pulled back through the pen stays in. Then I just push the pen through the wire boot out the other side, and now once you're done, you can obviously just take off the end. You can trim it if you're not happy with any weakening of the wire or anything, but now you've got the wire through, super easy to put it where you want it. So I'm just going to do this and then get the length I need, cut it back, put this boot back in the spot it's meant to be in, nice and water sealed, and then I've got my wires where they're meant to be. So from tweeter connection down under here to crossover. Crossover comes out the bottom. I've just looped it up the top. Then crossover connects to these wires, which go through that hole in there, through there, through the door, out this grommet, through the grommet, out this door, into here. So you've got tweeter, down, crossover. Wires come out the crossover, then connect the crossover to that one, and then I'll just zip tie these cables up nice and neat. And then it goes through the door, down to here to connect to the woofer. So the woofer just connects with its factory plug. There is just 2 cables, a positive and a negative, so I'll cut those and make them fitting that can fit onto the new woofer. So the woofer gets its factory power, that's no problem. And then the tweeter up the top is this wire and this wire that are the fresh add-ons through the door, and these will also connect to the woofer at separate terminals. I'll show that in a second, and that will take some signal up here to the crossover that protects it from the bass, and then that gets sent up to the tweeter, and the tweeter lasts in there nicely. And then it's got these. I would usually like a more solid connection, but I like that being there because if anyone ever pops this off for any reason and tugs it, it should just pull that out rather than damaging the tweeter. If that is there, I think that is far weaker than whatever connection is done from the factory and glued in there. So these are the crossovers. So you've got one side's a slightly smaller cable, and those ones obviously will fit onto the tweeter, which will go up here. And then the bigger side, I actually snip these off because obviously this will go up in the arch there, and then its wire is not long enough to go all the way through there and down to there. It's just a little bit too short, so there will be an extender from here down to the speaker, but obviously these connections are nicely made by the factory to be able to fit onto their woofer's terminals. Saves me having to put 2 other ones on. So I'll snip them here and then connect this to the extender cable there and there with just a little attachment like one of these, connecting this to a new wire, and then I'll put these at the end of the new wire, which will be running through here to here, so that the new wire can connect onto the woofer. It'll run up to the crossover, which will sit somewhere up in here, and then it will run up, and the small cables will connect to the tweeter, and that's all it will be. So with this crossover, what I did is from the tweeter, it goes through there, but on this one, you can't reach up through the back here. What you can do is reach through here. You can push the cable down, it'll come through here, and then you can see my crossover sitting there. I put a foam strip beneath him and he's wedged nicely in there because there's no real spot. It's not long enough to reach further down. I don't want to put it anywhere near any metal, and then it's sitting on a nice foam strip and it's wedged in there nicely, so he's not going to rattle around or move. When this all goes back in, that's also totally fine. It's not affecting clearance. Cable sitting with a nice bit of slack up to there, so it'll run down. There's crossover. Crossover comes out. I'll cut these off, put an extension bit, run that bit through this grommet down there to the woofer in the door. So this top part of the grommet in the door, actually, the reason it's got a bolt is because it's a hard plastic, so this rubber actually doesn't detach from there, and there's no room to get a wire through there at all. I promise you, don't even try. So what you can do is you can look there. There's another little bit that I assume they put there to add stuff. I'm just going to use a little thing like this, grab him and pull him out, because you can't really grab it from the inside because there's a secondary wall about here with a hole cut in it that leads to that. But I'll be able to take that rubber out, put the cables through it, and then push it back through, and then it should stick through far enough that I can grab it through here. There is one little pokey bit that's in there that you can just grab and fold out the way that has cable ties that are sharp on it. So you fold it out the way and you can squeeze your hand past it, and then you can grab that wires that come through, and then you can connect them up to here. Just got this grommet out of that hole and punched a little hole through it with a pricker. Then I've passed the 2 cables through it. Obviously some's going to go that side, and then what I've done to get it through this door, there's no grommet place, and then I can't really run it through that one. So what I'm going to do is I've just punched 2 little holes in there, and when you can push the cable through there, and then it'll be a watertight seal, and then you can push that through there, it'll come out here ready to go and connect to your woofer. Okay, so we've got tweeter coming down, going to your crossover. Crossover's wires come down here, and then this is the extension piece coming through here that will connect to that crossover. This runs through to this grommet here, which is now pushed in. I'm very happy with that seal there because it's quite tight squeeze. I'm sure that will be more than adequate. Then you've got your cables running out here. I've given them enough slack like this that the door can open and close. I'm still going to put some protective coating over that. I just wanted to illustrate this, and then I've just pushed these through their tiny little pricked holes, and that's also a nice tight squeeze, so I'm sure that will be watertight as well. And then that goes through this grommet, it's unaffected, totally there. That's screwed in there, and it comes through, and then you've got your 2 wires here, positive and negative to wire in, and then you got your factory one. Now with these as well, you get a black and a red and a brown, but if you look at the very tip of the connector, you can see a positive and a negative, and on this one it shows you that the brown is the positive and the negative is the black and red. So this is now ground and brown is positive on this plug, so that will connect to your woofer, and then the other 2 will also connect to the woofer to take signal to the tweeter up in there. So these ones all connected together, nice little crimp, negative, negative, positive, positive, runs through the door down to the woofer. And then there we go, I've added on some really nice cable protection, just wraps around it, self-tightening, gives it some really good protection because they're quite thin wires, so you don't want those just rubbing every time you're opening and closing the door. I think it would be insulated from water, but you don't want over time if that rubs to wear through, so this gives it as much protection as it could ever need, right the way from the top to the bottom. That's nice and protected. Obviously insulated those 2, and then I will zip tie them up to something nice up under there.
Here's a comparison between the factory and the new speakers, just so you can see the better construction. And then on the mounting, I've put a foam strip around the front where the speaker will mount to it. And then I'll put one around the back as well, where it mounts to the door, just to reduce vibrations and things like that. Here you can see just the better quality of materials and better construction of the new speakers. But obviously it's all about their performance, so I'm trying to reduce the vibrations as much as possible, hence the sound deadening and the foam strip. Here you can see the difference in the magnets and the materials in general, and this cone has a very nice honeycomb structure to try keep it as rigid as possible. Here on the mounting you can see the foam strip now that I've put it on the front and on the back, trying to be as neat as possible around these 2 little mounting prongs, and that will just go into the door over here, just like this. Here's an example of one mounted, and you can see that beautiful honeycomb structure in the cone, trying to keep that cone nice and rigid and easy to move with that beautiful nice foam for all the control of the speaker. A little bit dusty, but I'll wipe that off before I shutter everything up with the rest of the door card. And then I've connected the wires up, of course running up to the crossover, which you should be familiar with by now, and then up to the tweeter over here with its push-on tabs. Here's the other door, nice and mounted, and you can see it just fits in nicely, and once I've pressed this tweeter and the A-pillar in, it just looks factory. I'm really impressed with the quality of construction of these JL Audio speakers, so I'm very happy with my choice here. And again, you can see this A-pillar over here, and the one in the door on this side, just looking nice and neat. With the door card on, you can see, looks totally factory, and only when you really look in there can you see that there is a bit of an OEM Plus upgrade. And that sound is going to be phenomenal, being driven through the sound deadened doors, and with all the sound insulation that I've put throughout the whole cab. In the rear, I went with a limited edition carbon fiber JBL speaker, and you can see the quality of the materials here, of course. They're going to sound amazing, so I'm also very happy with my choice for the coaxials at the back here. And here you can see the comparison with the factory speakers versus these lovely JBL ones over here. Very solid and very well constructed. It also has this little button here for a little plus or minus 3 decibels boost. I don't think I'm going to use that too often, and you have to press it before you put the door cards on, but I'm really impressed with this carbon fiber material. It looks lovely. In the box, it also came with a little JBL sticker that once you put on, once the door card's on, kind of just gives it that little OEM plus look that I'm going for, where if you didn't know that that's not what's meant to be there, you wouldn't know. But from the top, looks beautiful, and only once you really look from the front can you see that amazing carbon fiber through the grills. And that's it. That's the door cards back on, looking nice and factory, but sounding nice and premium. In the next video, I'll be showing you how to disassemble the seats and get the fabrics off so you can give them a proper good clean outside of the car and wash them in a basin so you can get that fabric back to nice and fresh. I'll also show you how to tighten up little bits just if you've got any loose fabric from age, and that will be a super satisfying episode because you'll get to see all the dirt that comes out of these absolutely filthy seats from years of dirt and grime building up. The difference is massive, and if you've got one of these cars, you'll definitely want to see that one. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.
I think I need a break. Don't care how long it takes. You know I hate the way you make me feel so dark. You